I am Sarah, 29 years old, and 3 years ago I made a choice that changed everything. When mom passed away from a sudden heart attack, dad was completely lost. My older sister Emma, a successful attorney with her perfect suburban life, made it clear she was too busy to help. So I left my promising career in graphic design and moved back home to care for him. Dad is 68 now, and while he's not sick, losing mom aged him in ways that went beyond years. The grief left him fragile, forgetful sometimes, and I couldn't bear the thought of him being alone in the house where they'd shared 40 years of marriage. Emma visited maybe twice a year, always with criticism about how I was wasting my potential and enabling dad's dependence. She lived 2 hours away with her lawyer husband David and their twin boys, claiming her career and family responsibilities made frequent visits impossible. Yet she never hesitated to offer unsolicited advice about dad's care from her distant throne of judgment. Everything changed when dad met Linda at the grocery store 18 months ago. She was a 52-year-old divorced woman who seemed charming and attentive. Their courtship was swift, and they married after just 8 months. I was cautiously hopeful that Linda would bring happiness back into dad's life, but something felt wrong. From the start, Linda had an unsettling way of inserting herself into every aspect of dad's routine, slowly isolating him from his old friends and activities. She'd make subtle comments about the outdated house, questioning why someone dad's age needed so much space. Most concerning was how dad seemed increasingly tired and confused after Linda moved in. I began noticing Linda going through dad's medications, and twice I caught her on the phone with someone discussing property values in our neighborhood. When I confronted her, she claimed to be helping dad research downsizing options for the future. My suspicions crystallized when I discovered text messages on dad's phone between Linda and Emma, dating back to before Linda even met dad. The messages revealed a shocking conspiracy. Emma had found Linda through her legal network and orchestrated their entire relationship. Linda was promised a substantial cut of the house sale in exchange for convincing dad to move to assisted living, clearing the way for Emma to sell our family home. I quietly consulted with dad's longtime friend Robert, a retired attorney who helped me gather evidence and prepare legal protections. We documented Linda's suspicious behavior, had dad undergo a cognitive assessment during one of his clearer periods, and established new legal documents protecting his interests. Today was dad's 68th birthday, and I'd spent weeks planning a perfect celebration. The dining room was decorated with photos from throughout his life, his favorite foods were prepared, and I'd invited close friends and family for an intimate gathering. Emma arrived with David and the twins, but the children quickly disappeared to play video games upstairs. Linda had insisted on inviting her friend Marcus, a real estate agent who kept glancing around the house with calculating eyes. During dinner, dad seemed more confused than usual, struggling to follow conversations and calling me by mom's name. Twice, Linda kept patting his arm condescendingly, making comments about his declining memory loud enough for everyone to hear. After the cake was served, Emma stood up with a wine glass, her expression triumphant. "I'd like to make a toast to dad and announce some wonderful news," she began, her voice carrying an edge of satisfaction. "As you all know, this house has become too much for dad to manage. Linda and I have been discussing his future, and we've found the perfect solution." She reached into her purse and pulled out official-looking documents. Dad has agreed to move to Sunset Manor, a beautiful assisted living facility with full-time care. The house will be sold to provide for his ongoing expenses. She turned to me with a cold smile. "So, Sarah, pack your bags, freeloader. It's time you got a real life instead of hiding here playing nursemaid." The room erupted in supportive murmurs. Linda beamed, squeezing dad's hand possessively. Marcus began spreading real estate brochures across the table. Dad looked bewildered, his eyes darting around the room as if trying to process what was happening. My heart shattered as I watched the people I loved celebrate what felt like a betrayal. Without a word, I stepped outside into the cool evening air and made the call I'd hoped wouldn't be necessary. "Robert, it's happening. I need you here now." Within minutes, Robert arrived with Dr. Martinez, the geriatric specialist who had assessed dad, and James, a young attorney from Robert's former firm. Their serious expressions immediately shifted the atmosphere as we re-entered the house. Emma was in the middle of explaining property transfer procedures to the gathered guests. "Sarah's just upset because she'll have to find her own place to live," she was saying dismissively. "Actually, everything stops right here. I announced, my voice steadier than I expected. Dad isn't selling this house, and he's not moving anywhere. Emma laughed harshly. Too late, little sister. The papers are signed. I have power of attorney to make these decisions. Robert stepped forward, introducing himself to the room. I'm afraid that's not accurate. We have significant concerns about elder abuse occurring in this household. The room fell silent. Linda's face paled slightly, but she maintained her composure. This is ridiculous. Harold, tell them how well I take care of you. Dad looked confused, his words slightly slurred. I'm not sure what's happening. Linda gave me something earlier to help me relax for the party. That's our first concern, Dr. Martinez interjected, addressing Dad directly. Mr. Peterson, I'd like to take a blood sample to check for any medications that might be affecting your thinking. Linda immediately objected. That's completely unnecessary. As his wife, I don't consent to random medical tests. James produced a document from his briefcase. Fortunately, Mrs. Peterson, your consent isn't required. Harold executed a healthcare proxy 2 months ago, giving decision-making authority to Sarah and Robert here. Emma snatched the document, her face flushing with anger. This is impossible. Dad wouldn't do this behind my back. He did it because he was lucid enough to recognize he was being manipulated, I replied. We also have evidence that Linda has been tampering with his medications, causing artificial confusion and memory problems. I pulled out my phone, showing the recovered text messages between Linda and Emma, including these communications from before Linda ever randomly met Dad at the grocery store. Emma's face went white as she read. David peered over her shoulder, his expression growing more horrified with each message. Emma, please tell me this isn't what it looks like. Before Emma could respond, Linda made a desperate attempt to maintain control. Harold, darling, they're trying to turn you against the people who love you. Remember what we discussed about Sarah trying to keep you isolated? Dad was beginning to look more alert, the fog in his eyes slowly clearing. If you loved me, you wouldn't drug me. You wouldn't conspire with my daughter to steal my home. Dr. Martinez had finished taking the blood sample. Based on my previous examination and current observations, I'm confident these results will show unauthorized medications. This represents clear elder abuse. Robert addressed Emma directly. The power of attorney you're relying on was signed while Harold was chemically impaired. It's legally invalid. Furthermore, the healthcare proxy and financial protections Harold established supersede any previous arrangements. Linda's mask finally slipped. This is all Sarah's fault, she screamed. She's been jealous of me from day one, trying to keep Harold dependent on her. She's manipulating him, not me. Emma, realizing her conspiracy was crumbling, tried one last defense. Even if Linda made mistakes, I was only trying to secure Dad's future care. This house is too much for him. By conspiring to drug him and steal his home, I challenged. By planning this betrayal behind his back, Mom wanted this house to stay in the family, and you know it. Dad's voice, clearer now than it had been in months, cut through the argument. Emma, how could you do this? Your own father? Emma's composure finally broke. Because I'm tired of watching Sarah get praised for sacrificing everything while I work my ass off to build a real life. This house is just sitting here wasting money that could secure your actual care. My actual care? Dad stood slowly, supported by Robert. You mean warehousing me in a facility so you can profit from Mom's family home? David, who had been silent throughout the confrontation, finally spoke. Emma, I can't believe you involved me in this. The boys, what kind of example are we setting? Marcus, the real estate agent, was quietly packing his materials. I was told this was a consensual family decision. Given the circumstances, I cannot proceed with any property listing. Linda, seeing her alliance crumbling, made one final desperate play. Fine, you want the truth? Yes. I married Harold for this house. Emma promised me half the proceeds if I could convince him to move to assisted living. We thought it would be easy, old widower, grieving, lonely. We didn't count on Sarah being so suspicious. The admission hung in the air like poison. Dad's face crumpled with the pain of betrayal, while Emma stared at Linda in horror. You weren't supposed to say that, Emma whispered. Too late now, Linda snapped back. Your precious plan failed. I'm done pretending to love this old man. She grabbed her purse and stormed toward the stairs. I'm packing my things. My lawyer will be in touch about the divorce. James called after her. Given the evidence of fraud and elder abuse, I wouldn't expect much from any settlement. Emma stood frozen as Linda's footsteps thundered overhead, followed by the sound of drawers being yanked open. David had moved to comfort their sons, who had emerged from upstairs frightened by the shouting. "Dad," Emma began, her voice broken, "I never meant for it to go this far. I thought I was protecting you." Dad looked at her with profound sadness. "By drugging me? By conspiring behind my back?" "Emma, I don't know who you've become." Emma broke down crying, the weight of her actions finally hitting her. "I was so angry at Sarah for getting all the credit, all the gratitude, while I felt forgotten. But this isn't who I want to be." Linda reappeared with suitcases, her face a mask of fury. "I'm leaving. Don't expect me to go quietly. I'll fight for whatever I can get." She slammed out of the house, tires squealing as she drove away. In the sudden quiet, Dad looked around at those who remained: me, Robert, Dr. Martinez, James, and Emma with her ashamed family. The other party guests had quietly departed during the confrontation. "I think," Dad said with a weary smile, "we still have birthday cake to finish." The next few hours were surreal. Emma confessed everything: her resentment, her financial pressures, her foolish decision to trust Linda's scheme. She begged Dad's forgiveness, acknowledging the depth of her betrayal. David was horrified by his wife's actions and immediately began discussing counseling and making amends. The twins, old enough to understand something serious had happened, stayed close to their grandfather, offering innocent comfort. The weeks following Dad's birthday felt like living in the aftermath of an earthquake. The foundation of our family had cracked, and we were all trying to figure out how to rebuild on unstable ground. Dr. Martinez's blood tests confirmed what we suspected. Linda had been giving Dad a cocktail of unprescribed anti-anxiety medications and sleep aids, creating the cognitive confusion that made him seem incapable of managing his own affairs. Within days of Linda's departure, Dad's mental clarity improved dramatically. It was both a relief and heartbreaking to realize how much of his recent struggles had been artificially induced. The legal proceedings moved swiftly. Linda initially tried to fight the divorce and claim spousal rights to the house, but the evidence against her was overwhelming. The text messages, video recordings of her tampering with medications, and financial records showing her coordination with Emma painted a clear picture of elder abuse and fraud. Her attorney advised her to accept a settlement that left her with nothing from the marriage and required her to leave the state. Emma's situation was more complex. As an officer of the court, her involvement in elder abuse carried potential professional consequences. The State Bar Association opened an investigation into her conduct, and she faced possible suspension or disbarment. More importantly for our family, she had to confront the psychological roots of her betrayal. The twins, Michael and Matthew, were devastated when they learned the truth about their mother's actions. At 14, they were old enough to understand the seriousness of what had happened, but young enough to feel their entire world had been shaken. David brought them to see Dad regularly, both to maintain their relationship with their grandfather and to show them that actions have consequences. "Grandpa, are you really okay?" Michael asked during one visit, his young face creased with worry. "Mom said you were sick and confused, but you seem fine to me." Dad hugged his grandson tightly. "I'm much better now, Mike. Sometimes adults make mistakes, even big ones. What matters is learning from them and trying to do better." The house itself seemed to breathe easier after Linda's departure. I found myself rediscovering corners and rooms that had felt tense during her residency. Dad resumed his old routines: morning coffee on the back porch, evening walks around the neighborhood, Saturday visits to the hardware store where he'd worked part-time after retirement. But the betrayal had left deep marks. Dad developed a habit of checking his medications obsessively, counting pills and reading labels. He became suspicious of new people, questioning their motives in ways that broke my heart. The trust that had defined his generous nature had been damaged, perhaps permanently. "I feel like a fool," he confided to me one evening as we sat in the living room where Mom's portrait still hung above the fireplace. "How did I not see what was happening? How did I let them manipulate me so completely?" "Dad, they drugged you." I reminded him gently. "Your confusion wasn't natural, it was chemically induced. And Emma knew exactly how to exploit your trust because she's your daughter. The fault lies with them, not you." He shook his head sadly. "But I should have listened to you. You tried to warn me about Linda, and I dismissed your concerns. I chose to believe what I wanted to believe instead of seeing what was right in front of me." These conversations were painful but necessary. Dad needed to process the trauma of betrayal, and I needed to help him rebuild his confidence in his own judgment. We started seeing a counselor who specialized in elder abuse recovery, and slowly Dad began to reclaim his sense of self-worth. Emma's journey toward redemption was rocky and uncertain. She entered intensive therapy to address what her counselor described as golden child syndrome, a psychological pattern where high achievers become resentful when they don't receive constant praise and attention. Her success in law school and her career had created an expectation of recognition that made her feel invisible. When I became the focus of family gratitude, I convinced myself that you were wasting your life here, she told me during one of our supervised conversations with the family counselor. It was easier to believe that than to admit I was jealous of the bond you had with Dad. I wanted to be seen as the successful daughter, but you became the beloved daughter, and I couldn't handle it. Her admission was both painful and illuminating. For years, I had wondered why Emma seemed to resent my choice to care for Dad. Now I understood that her criticism had never really been about my life choices. It was about her own insecurities and need for validation. But Emma, I replied, struggling to keep my voice steady, you were always Dad's pride and joy. He bragged about your achievements constantly. You never needed to compete with me. I know that now, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. But at the time, it felt like you had become more important to him than I was. Instead of talking to you or Dad about my feelings, I let Linda convince me that removing you from the equation would solve everything. The path to forgiveness was not linear. Some days I felt ready to rebuild our relationship. Others, the magnitude of her betrayal felt too enormous to overcome. She had drugged our father, attempted to steal his home, and humiliated me in front of our family and friends. Those actions couldn't be undone by therapy sessions and tearful apologies. David became an unexpected ally in the healing process. Horrified by his wife's actions, he initially considered divorce but ultimately decided to support her recovery while protecting their sons. He established clear boundaries. Emma would undergo extensive counseling, make full financial restitution for any money taken from Dad, and have no involvement in Dad's care decisions until she had rebuilt trust over time. I married the woman I thought Emma was, he told me privately. Now I'm trying to help her become that woman again, for her sake and for our boys. But if she can't change, if this pattern continues, I won't sacrifice my children's moral foundation for her. The twins struggled with their mother's fall from grace. They had always seen Emma as the perfect parent, successful, confident, and morally upright. Learning about her conspiracy with Linda shattered that image and forced them to confront the complexity of human nature earlier than most children should. I don't understand how Mom could do something so mean to Grandpa, Matthew confided to me during one visit. She always taught us that lying and cheating were wrong. Was she lying to us too? These conversations with my nephews were heartbreaking but important. I tried to help them understand that people can make terrible mistakes without being terrible. People, that their mother's actions were wrong, but didn't negate the love she had shown them throughout their lives. The financial investigation revealed the full extent of Emma and Linda's scheme. Over the 18 months of their conspiracy, they had siphoned nearly $35,000 from Dad's accounts through various means: inflated expenses, fake service fees, and unauthorized withdrawals. Emma's law firm was forced to make full restitution when the theft was discovered, and she was suspended from practicing law for 6 months while the Bar Association completed their investigation. The house itself required both practical and symbolic healing. We changed all the locks, updated the security system, and renovated Linda's former bedroom into a home office where I could work on my freelance graphic design projects. Dad insisted on replacing the mattress in the master bedroom, saying he couldn't sleep peacefully on something Linda had shared. More importantly, we worked to rebuild the positive energy that had been poisoned by months of manipulation and deception. We invited Dad's old friends for dinner parties, resumed holiday traditions that Linda had disrupted, and created new rituals to mark our recovery. Every Friday became movie night with Dad, the twins, and sometimes David, watching old classics and sharing popcorn in the living room where Mom's presence still felt strong. 6 months after the birthday confrontation, Emma completed her court-mandated counseling and requested a family meeting. The session took place at the therapist's office with professional mediation, as none of us felt ready for an unstructured conversation. Emma looked different, thinner, more fragile, with lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before. The confident attorney persona had been stripped away, leaving someone who seemed almost childlike in her vulnerability. "I know sorry isn't enough," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know I destroyed something precious and that it might never be repaired. But I need you both to know that I understand what I did was unforgivable. I exploited Dad's grief and trust. I conspired with a stranger to abuse him. I tried to steal his home and his dignity. And I hurt Sarah, who had sacrificed everything to care for him." She paused, gathering strength. "The worst part is that I convinced myself I was doing the right thing. I told myself that Dad needed professional care, that Sarah was wasting her life, that selling the house was practical and logical. But the truth is, I was just jealous and greedy. I wanted Dad's gratitude and the money from the house, and I was willing to betray both of you to get it." Dad listened without interrupting, his face unreadable. When Emma finished, he sat quietly for several minutes before responding. "Emma, you are my daughter, and I will always love you. But love doesn't erase what you did or make it acceptable. You didn't just make a mistake, you orchestrated a months-long campaign to abuse and defraud me. You brought a stranger into my life to manipulate me, and when that wasn't enough, you had her drug me to make me compliant." His voice grew stronger as he continued. "You humiliated me on my birthday, in my own home, in front of people I care about. You tried to steal the house your mother left us, the place where we built our family and our memories. And you did all of this while Sarah was sacrificing her career and her future to take care of me." Emma was crying now, but Dad continued relentlessly. "If you want any chance of rebuilding our relationship, you need to understand that trust isn't just given, it's earned. And you have a very long way to go before you earn mine." The conversation marked the beginning of what would be a years-long process of potential reconciliation. Emma would need to prove through consistent actions that she had genuinely changed. Dad was willing to leave the door open but made it clear that any future relationship would be built on new terms, with new boundaries and safeguards. As for me, I found unexpected strength in the aftermath of the crisis. Fighting for Dad's rights and dignity had reminded me of capabilities I had forgotten during my years as a caregiver. I began accepting more challenging freelance projects, and even started teaching graphic design classes at the local community college. Dad encouraged my professional growth, insisting that caring for him shouldn't mean abandoning my own ambitions. We hired Mrs. Chen, a wonderful part-time caregiver who came 3 days a week, giving me freedom to rebuild my career while ensuring Dad had the support he needed. "Your mother would be so proud of you," Dad told me one evening as we sat on the porch swing. "Mom had loved, not just for taking care of me, but for finding the courage to fight when it mattered. You saved this house, but more importantly, you saved my dignity and autonomy." Looking back, I realized that the birthday confrontation, as traumatic as it was, ultimately strengthened our family in unexpected ways. It forced us to confront hard truths about trust, resentment, and the complex dynamics of caregiving. It taught us that love sometimes requires difficult choices and that protecting the vulnerable is worth any personal cost. The house still holds all our memories, the joy and the pain, the celebrations and the betrayals, but it also holds our resilience and our commitment to each other. Every morning when I wake up in my childhood bedroom and hear Dad making coffee in the kitchen below, I'm grateful for that terrible birthday when everything changed, because it led us to this place of hard-won peace and genuine understanding. Trust, once broken, is not easily repaired, but with time, patience, and genuine effort, even the deepest wounds can begin to heal. Our family will never be the same, but perhaps that's not entirely a bad thing. We're more honest now, more aware of each other's vulnerabilities and needs. We've learned that love without vigilance can be exploited, but love with wisdom can endure even the greatest betrayals.